We're going to do a little bit about the Seder. We're not going to do anything that's deep. There's nothing major about the Seder. I found, nothing deep, nothing Kabbalistic, nothing that you're going to really want to, just sink your teeth into and think over overnight. I encourage you all at any point to unmute yourself and ask any question you want. There's a perfect opportunity. What I'm looking to do over here is give people a basic outline of the Seder. Now, what I found is over my years of speaking to people that, I guess someone who grew up with a yeshiva education or grew up with just enough background, they really have a handle on what, for the most part, what's going on. Although they're not everybody's so clear, but for the most part they do. But if you have not had some formal education, a lot of times people are very confused on what's going on in the Seder, just what the steps are, what's really happening. Now, I don't mean the formal steps. Obviously, we can all sing that song, but the Seder, by way of, I guess, introduction here, the word Seder means order. The Seder is designed it's crafted beautifully in a very, very intentional and specific format that integrates a whole bunch of ideas and puts them together in a beautiful, beautiful mosaic. And there are so many different nuances and twists and turns that if a person doesn't really have an idea of what each nuance is supposed to accomplish, you're going to get lost. Now, the fact of the matter is, once a person really sees what sort of the roots are of the various nuances, what is supposed to what are the different threads that are going through the mosaic of the Seder, it's pretty intuitive. It's pretty clear to follow what's happening. So we're going to jump right in. And again, feel free to mute yourself if you have any questions. I'm going to start with the following. I don't know why it's cutting off. It's probably because I'm not on full screen. There we go. We'll just start with that. Start with the following over here. The Seder night is a night where it's the first night of Passover, obviously. So it's the second night in the diaspora. It's a night where we're trying to accomplish specifically 5 different mitzvot. There are 5 mitzvot that we try to do through the Seder night that are specific to the evening of the Seder. We'll see there's other mitzvot that come into play, just like any, just because, obviously there's still a mitzvah for you to speak nicely to people and not talk lashon hara. That doesn't mean that, and not to kill or commit idol worship. We're not discussing this. 5 mitzvahs that specifically pertain to this evening, as opposed to any other evening that we're accomplishing. Each of those 5 mitzvot are going to weave through with the different halacha, are going to weave through the evening of the Seder. And if you can track them and follow them, you'll understand exactly why each move happens, almost like in a chess game. If I understand, so to speak, what the strategy is, where the chess master or the player wants each piece to go, I get it. Okay, so I understand why he did that. And I understand why he did that, because he's trying to get to here. So these are the 5 mitzvot of the Seder. There are 2 biblical mitzvahs and 3 rabbinic mitzvahs. The 2 biblical mitzvahs are, number 1, relating the story of the exodus of Egypt. Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. That is probably the prime mitzvah of the evening. The Seder is designed, its lion's share is designed to take up and accomplish that mitzvah, to relate over the exodus from Egypt. We'll talk about that. And eating matzah. It's biblical. Those two are the 2 biblical matzahs. Now, there are 3 rabbinic mitzvahs. One of them is number 3, which is the first rabbinic mitzvah, drinking the 4 cups of wine, eating maror, and reciting Hallel, which is a rabbinic mitzvah. Now, these are the only mitzvot. Now, I just want 2 things. First of all, if eating maror is actually mentioned in the Torah, but eating maror, as it's mentioned in the Torah, would presuppose that you have a Pesach offering, which we might or might not have. This, or God willing, we'll have, but or at least one of you maybe will do it in your backyard, and we can all come watch. But we might not, and on the chance that we won't, maror, it gets downgraded to rabbinic. Maror is a biblical mitzvah when it is combined with the Pesach offering, but if it's not combined with the Pesach offering, it's rabbinic. Now, the difference between a biblical mitzvah and a rabbinic mitzvah, there are tremendous differences. Without going into all the differences, needless to say, the biblical mitzvahs are much more. We look at them as far more severe, far more. I don't want to say important, because if a person disregards even the rabbinic mitzvah, that's also terrible. It's just, we look at that as also terrible as well. But there is an emphasis, a much more of a carefulness to try to make sure that I do the biblical mitzvahs as best as possible. Rabbinic mitzvahs as well, but a person we tend to rely on more leniencies when it comes to rabbinic mitzvahs, without going again into all the details. So we have these 5 mitzvahs that we accomplish on the Seder night. Now, there are, of course, you'll notice there are, of course, a bunch of other things that happen on the Seder night. We have Kiddush. There's going to be Kiddush for Yom Tov. Talk about that is one of the 4 cups. We'll talk about that in a moment. You're going to wash your hands for the meal. There's the Yom Tov meal itself, Birkat HaMazon, which is biblical, and Havdalah. This year we do Havdalah in the Seder. That doesn't happen every year, but this year we're going to make Havdalah in the Seder. We'll try to inject that in and see how that goes. Those are mitzvahs that also occurred in the Seder, but obviously none of those mitzvahs are not special or specific or exclusive to the night of Pesach. Those are mitzvahs that happens every Yom Tov, or sometimes multiple times a day. So those are other mitzvahs that need to be accomplished. The reason why I bring them up is because they will be weaved into the Seder as well. Now, there's a bunch of, if I would have asked you and surveyed you, well, what are some of the mitzvahs of the Seder? A bunch of people would probably said some of the following: the Seder plate, leaning, karpas, dipping, charoses, the hill sandwich, the Yom Tov meal actually should not be here, the afikomen. Those are different additional points that are in the Seder. Now, here is a little bit of a nuance, which is not the topic of our class. There is a differentiation. There is a distinction between what we officially categorize as a mitzvah and what is a sort of a subcategory of a mitzvah or a custom. So for example, let's take an example. Washing your hands before you eat bread is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. It's a rabbinic mitzvah to wash your hands before you eat bread. If I were to ask somebody, well, what are some of the mitzvahs that are involved in washing your hands? If they said, well, you have to use water and you have to use a cup, they would be right. Those are not mitzvahs. Those are details within the mitzvah itself. Most of these are either the ones that you see are either customs or details within one of the mitzvahs. True, they are important. They have a lot of prominence in the Seder as well, but they are not, technically speaking, they're not in the parent category of mitzvahs. They're in subcategory of either customs or different ways of fulfilling the mitzvahs, as we will see. So, but again, I want to reiterate, let's just move back over there. These are our 5 mitzvahs that we're going to weave through the evening with, relating the story of the Exodus of Egypt: eating matzah, drinking the 4 cups of wine, eating mar, reciting Hallel, and then some of the other standard mitzvahs that get accomplished during the day. And I laid it out like this, and I try to lay it out in the order which basically it will appear. Going through the 5 cups of wine and Kiddush, relating the story of Egypt, and on the sidebar, we will follow through some of those mitzvahs and see how they're accomplished. Now, the Haggadah, which I'm going to just base this on, is the Maxwell House Haggadah. Anybody who saw this last year might have heard this, but again, just the Maxwell House is probably, I think it is the most printed Haggadah in the world ever. There's over 50 million copies of the Maxwell House Haggadah printed. Its first copy was in 1932. It's a fascinating thing, but it seems that Maxwell House, he wasn't Jewish. It wasn't like there was a Jew. There was somebody that was just very smart in advertising that knew that if they got somebody to certify them for Pesach, which technically doesn't need to be certified. Well, I'm not getting into that. I don't want to get into the kashrus things, but there was some debate if at the time in the 30s, if coffee could be used for Passover. Maxwell House jumped on the bandwagon, realizing that they can get some sort of certification, put out the Haggadah, and made themselves for years and years, made themselves the coffee of choice for Passover. Great marketing campaign. And still looked at as like an icon, I guess, in America today. So we'll take a look using the Maxwell House Haggadah, and we'll try to weave through. Now, just again, the way the Haggadah begins, most people are pretty much familiar with the steps of the Haggadah. They look like this: Kaddish, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, Rachza, Motzi, Matzah, Morah, Korach, Shulchan Aruch, Tzafon, Baruch, Halal, and Nirtza. For some odd reason, this Haggadah is actually, it says Orchatz, and that is not right. I don't know anybody that says that, but either way, it messes up the song if you try it too. So, but in any case, so Kaddish, we're making Kiddush, like a standard Kiddush. Orchatz, washing our hands without a bracha. Karpas is the first dip of vegetable. Yachatz, breaking the matzah. Magid, telling over the entire episode of the Exodus from Egypt in a very, very awkward way, in a very, very cumbersome way to give it over. I mean, we could say it's straightforward better by kind of relating what we saw in the Prince of Egypt and kind of nail it. The way that the Haggadah decides to do it is twists and turns all over the place. Hopefully we'll touch a little bit about that. Rachatz, it's rachza, but either way, rachatz is washing our hands, actually doing the mitzvah of washing hands for bread. Motzi, matzah is when we have not bread. Obviously, matzah, Mar, we eat mar, korech. These are very short ones, korech, where we take the matzah and the mar, we put it together and eat them together. Shulchan Aruch is our meal at 1 a.m. Just what you want is to be having like ribs at 1 a.m. Safon is the afikomen. Barich is Birkat Hamazon. Halal and nirtza. Now, the one that we're not going to talk about is nirtza. Halal is halal. Nirtza is going to be left out of this presentation for the following reason. Nirtza is actually a custom that developed. As a matter of fact, the Rambam, who codifies the entire Haggadah, the Haggadah actually is potentially the oldest set of customs that we have. Almost every step of the Haggadah is mentioned in the Talmud itself in very, very interesting ways. When they talk about literally what their seders look like. Really, really fascinating pieces of Gemara for anybody who's following Daf Yom. We're going through it right now. But Nirtza is actually a tack-on of a lot of different praises that we kind of, praises of Hashem. There are different customs in different sects of, Sephardim and Ashkenazim and Hasidim of exactly how they will perform Nirtza. Some of them got added on much later. And much later, I mean, only in the last 500 years as opposed to the last 2,500 years. But Nirtza in itself is actually a custom. Theoretically speaking, if a person passed out after Halal, I'm not telling you to do this. You should keep all customs of the Jewish people. They're holy in and of itself. But if a person passed out after Halal, they will have fulfilled their obligation in the Seder. They have done all of the halachas of the Seder. And that's why you see the poem or just the beautiful piece. We sing it Chasal Seder Pesach. We sing at the end of Halal. We sing it before Nirtza because that where we say we've completed the Pesach Seder and we say a tefillah that Hashem should bring us back and allow us to do Yerushalayim. The Seder is really ended there. And Nirtza just continued praises of Hashem that we do after the Seder. So we're going to look at those steps of the Seder. And if you're not, if I'm moving a little bit fast, don't worry about it, hopefully. And again, you could chime in, ask any questions you want. If I'm moving a little bit fast, then just don't worry. We're going to keep reviewing a bunch of these things as we go along and take them slowly. Here are our steps. And to the left on the sidebar, we have our mitzvahs. And we're going to try to track the mitzvahs as they appear through the steps of the Seder and how they will play themselves out. Now, the first one we want to take a look at are the 4 cups of wine. If a person takes a look at the 4 cups of wine, the 4 cups of wine will present themselves over and over and over again throughout the Seder. It's like you pour here, and we'll take a look over here. I mean, we're pouring our first cup of wine at kaddish at the very beginning of the Seder. So we pour it, right? And then we make kiddush, which we'd expect. We make kiddush. And then we drink that wine over here in a leaning position. Okay, that kind of is, that's standard. This is a parenthetical point, again, just for 2021. In Kaddish, the first night of Pesach this year is falling out on Motzei Shabbos, on Saturday night, which would mean that also no malacha no cooking, no preparation, no malacha for the Seder is allowed to be done on Shabbos itself. You have to wait till Shabbos is out in order to start preparing for the Seder. It's going to put our Seder a little bit later than usual. But in any case, so here you'll see in the Kaddish that they have in the Haggadah, which is how it'll appear this year for us, we have a break in the middle after we make the Borei Pir Gafen, and we make the regular bracha for Kiddush, it breaks for Havdalah, Borei Merei Ha'esh, and Hamavdu ben Kodesh LeKodesh. We don't say Hamavdu ben Kodesh LeChol, which would mean Hashem separates between the mundane and the holy. We say Baruch Hamavdu ben Kodesh LeKodesh. We say that, and then we make a Shechianu, and we go back to our regular scheduled program. So that's enough for Havdalah for now. That's what we need for Havdalah for now. But let's return to the 4 cups. So the first of the 4 cups, okay, we see it gets poured like every other Yom Tov or every other Shabbos. It gets poured right here. It gets drunk right there. And we, Shalom Al Yisrael, we're happy campers. But the next cup gets poured. It gets poured right before Manishtana. Then we elevated, here it says, look, we elevated V'hisha Amda. We put it back at V'tzei Lamad, when we start to talk about what happened to Yaakov and Lavan. Then we elevated again at Lefikach Anachnu Chayavim Lahodo. So therefore we have to exalt you. We put the cup, on the table at, there's different minhagim over here, there's different customs of what people do here, but put it back down the table at the beginning of Halal, and then we only drink the cup all the way down later. Why? We need to understand why is it that we're filling the cup over here, which depending on what Seder you're at, and depending on what your Seder you're at, you could be drinking it, anywhere between a half hour and 2.5 hours later. So why bother filling it up over here? Let's keep it chilled. and picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. What's going on? If a person understands what it's designed to accomplish, it's very, very intuitive. Similarly, again, what's going to happen is we're going to pour the cup after we eat our meal, and the afikomen, we're going to pour a cup and we're going to say Birkat HaMazon, and then we're going to drink our cup over there. So why don't we pour it and drink it right over here? If we're gonna make a Brei Paragafen after Birkat HaMazon, so pour it and drink it then. Then once again, we pour a cup before the second half of Hallel. Hallel split up in the Seder. We pour a second cup and we don't drink it. Here we're on page 38 of this Haggadah going through Hallel, and it's ending at 53, where 20 something, whatever, by our mathematics, we're 15 pages later, right? So what's the deal with the pouring, the drinking, picking it up, putting it down? This is a very simple point. It's so simple that once you get it, it becomes so intuitive what is happening with the cups. And it answers probably a third of the confusion and all the various customs that occur during the Seder. The four cups of wine. There is a verse in the Torah that says, "Kos Yeshuas Esa Ub'Shem Hashem Akra." I raise up my cup to Hashem. I raise up my cup of deliverance, my cup of redemption, and I call out and I sing praises to Hashem. We learned that that certain mitzvahs that depend on speech, what's the word I'm looking for? We honor it. We enhance it by doing it on a cup of wine, a cup of grapes, just a cup of wine, whatever you use. But we enhance it. We give it much more honor and respect. We enhance it by doing it over a cup. So any mitzvah that is going to be a mitzvah of speech, where we are going to praise the name of Hashem and give thanks to Hashem, we're going to do that in the Seder on a cup of wine. It's as simple as that. So let's look at our mitzvahs over here. We have 4 mitzvahs. During the Seder, there are 4 mitzvahs that are accomplished by speaking them. 4 mitzvahs where we praise Hashem, independent mitzvahs that are done with speech. Kiddush itself, okay, that we know is relating the story of Exodus. That's the long one. Birkat HaMazon, not specific to the night of Pesach, but hey, that's a mitzvah of speech that's done tonight, done on the night of the Seder, and reciting Hallel. All 4 of these are mitzvahs where we are speech-related mitzvahs where we honor Hashem's name. We sing, we say praise to the name of Hashem. So therefore, we do them all on a cup of wine. The wine is poured before the mitzvah, and at the conclusion of the mitzvah of speech, we make a bracha and we drink the wine. So while the wine is in front of us, during each 4 of these mitzvahs, we will say the mitzvah with the wine in front of us, and then make a bracha. Now it becomes very intuitive. Why is it that the cups are weaving through the Seder? You're pouring it here, you're drinking it here. You're pouring it here, you're drinking. Every time you're pouring your cup, you should know you are about to start another mitzvah of speech where you're going to praise Hashem. Kiddush, you pour it up. I'm saying Kiddush. I'm saying thank you for the day of for the Yom Tov day, and for choosing us from the nations. And then I drink. We're about to tell over Yetzias Mitzrayim of the exodus of Egypt. We talk about the praise of Hashem. He saved us from Mitzrayim. We pour wine before it. We say all of that. We say all of the incredible, miraculous deliverance that Hashem accomplished for us, that Hashem did for us, and we pour the wine before that. And then when it's done, we hold up a cup and we drink. We make a bracha and we drink to it. And then we have our matzah, we have our we have all the food-related mitzvahs that come in the middle. And then we're going to say Birkat HaMazon and thank Hashem, and we pour a cup of wine before that, and we drink on that. And then Hallel, where we're singing praises to Hashem, actually, right before we do that, we pour a cup of wine and then we drink. Now, there is something called the kos of Eliyahu, the cup of Eliyahu. If we have more time at the end, somebody asked me, I'm happy to speak a little bit more about that. That is a custom. That is neither a mitzvah or if a person didn't have a cup of Eliyahu, they would have fulfilled their obligation. I am sure Eliyahu has plenty to drink throughout the evening. You need not worry. You need not worry. So, but that is actually a fascinating source for why that is done. Which, if we have time, we can discuss later. So basically, it looks then like this: the 4 cups of wine take place during these stages of the Haggadah, speech-related mitzvahs. And that is the understanding of the 4 cups of wine. We're going to go to the next mitzvah. Now, again, we said there are 2 biblical mitzvahs and 3 rabbinic mitzvahs. The second biblical mitzvah, and probably the most prominent mitzvah of the evening, so to speak, the mitzvah that the whole Seder is really designed around at its core, is relating the story of the Exodus. Now, this mitzvah as well has its places, where it weaves through, but it needs a little bit of background as to why certain things happen, why there are certain customs and certain patterns that we choose, certain format that we choose as we relate the story of Exodus. I do want to say one thing, which I realized I just forgot about the 4 cups. The picking up the cup, putting down the cup, there's almost like these psych outs that go on during the day, like pick it up, put it down. Like what's that about? That whole picking up and putting it down it's very simple. You'll notice we put the cup down. We could put the cup down, except for one exception where there's 2 different customs. We pick the cup up every time we're praising Hashem, and we put the cup down every single time we're going through the something that might be derogatory or might not be so praiseworthy about the Jewish people. The cup's going down. The exceptions are if it's very long, like the Hagat, like the main part of the Magid, which is very long. You'll be holding your cup for 2 hours. And the Hallel, the first part of Hallel is very long. A lot of people put it down at those points. But that's, there's certain points we pick it up to praise and to thank Hashem for deliverance, and we put it down at them. But either way, again, the 4 cups surround those mitzvahs. Let's move on to relating the story of Exodus. And again, if you have any questions at any point, you could stop me at any point, ask your question. I don't have the chat open in front of me, so don't rely on the chat. I have no idea. Looks like actually there was a chat's done. Karpas. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Karpas. We'll talk about the Karpas. We're going to talk about the Karpas in a bit. We'll touch on it. So we'll dip ourselves into it. Oh, come on, give it to me. Okay, in any case, relating the story. Oh my gosh, everybody just left. I'm just kidding. Okay, relating the story, the Exodus. So there are Chazal in the Gemara gave 3 different forms, 3 different what's the word I'm looking for? 3 different criteria and I don't know the word, but forms of how 3 different aspects of how they wanted a person to go through relating the story of the Exodus. Once we understand that these 3 forms have to be accomplished, we'll see why a lot of the different parts of the story take. I'm sorry, actually, what just happened is I moved my foot and my tile read my phone to find my phone instead of my phone finding my keys. I apologize. So we'll see the different, based on these 3 forms, we'll start to see how it goes through. Number 1, the first thing is Chazal say in the Talmud that it has to be done in a question answer format. That's something we're familiar with. Somebody has to be asking questions, and the whole thing, the rest of the Haggadah where we talk about the Exodus is going to be a response to those questions. And this is something we're all familiar with because we know the Haggadah says it explicitly that discusses the sons and how we answer the sons and the Manashtana questions. As a matter of fact, if anybody, I think it was the Gemara yesterday in Daf Yomi, it brings up an episode where Abaye was one of the most prominent, if not top 5 draft picks of the prominence of the Amoraim, of the Talmudic scholars. He says, post the Mishnah, he says that he's a little kid at the Seder, and it relates that he got confused about something, why they were moving the Seder put away. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And Rabbi, who was leading the Seder at the time, says, "Oh, thanks for asking. Now we don't have to say the Manashtana, but that's great. Someone asked a question. Let's go on." What has to happen is it has to be in a question answer format. We've added in the Manashtana in order for there to be a built-in question. As a matter of fact, the Mishnah has it already. It already talks about it in the Mishnah, but it has to be in question answer format. Number 2, there is the Chazal say, and it also says it in the Haggadah itself. We say it in the Seder that it's praiseworthy to continue to really drain and squeeze out as much detail and as much praise of Hashem of the Exodus that we can. So we're looking to say over a detailed experience of the Exodus. And number 3, we have to begin discussing the shame of Israel, so to speak, of the Jewish people, and end with Israel's glory. So those are the three format aspects of the Seder and of the telling over the Exodus, and we're going to see how those play out right now. As we watch, Right after Kiddush is over, we just drank that first cup of wine. Immediately, we're going to go to, oh, it's Orchatz. Orchatz is good. I'm sorry, it's Rachza was bothering me. Not Orchatz is fine. Kaddish, Orchatz, Rachza is the one. It says Rachatz in this Haggadah, but Orchatz is fine. So yeah, either way. So we go immediately from Kiddush to Orchatz, to washing our hands without a bracha, and then to Karpas, a dip. Both of these points, there are different commentaries why Orchatz is there. There's a couple of different opinions, but we're going to go with a very simple way through it. They're there just to inspire questions from the children. These are just unusual. They're just unusual occurrences, unusual practices that happens at a regular Yom Tov meal. So if you have a young child over there and they see, hey, we made Kiddush, and why are we going? And we're washing our hands, and I say, don't make a bracha. And then we go and have a vegetable, and then we don't even take the challah out. As a matter of fact, we break the matzah and we remove the Seder plate. And he's like, well, what's going on? Like, why is all this going on? That is something that we're trying to initiate the child to ask questions. We're all aware of the fact that the child sees the same thing every year. Why would he ask the question 2 years in a row? But in any case, it's built in that it should be unusual, that should inspire and should initiate the question answer format. Once that question answer format is fulfilled, and we see after, well, let's take these steps. I really want to talk about Yachatz a little bit later, but again, Orchatz and Karpas are both there pretty much to what we're gonna take to initiate questions and to initiate curiosity of the child. Yachatz, when we talk about matzah, hopefully I'll get back to Yachatz. We'll skip that. It's just breaking the middle matzah. We go immediately then into Magid, which is telling over the story of Exodus. Now, this is the lion's share of the Seder, unless eating takes you a very long time. This is really what the Seder is about. This is the main point of the Seder, the nucleus. So we will start relating the story of Exodus, and without going into the details of every single paragraph, obviously, again, as we mentioned before, we're going to pour our second cup of wine, and that's going to sit there through this entire episode of discussing Yetzias Mitzrayim, discussing the Exodus. And we start again, question answer format. We make sure now it's built into the Seder. There has to be some sort of question that was initiated, and the child, or anybody who's there, it doesn't have to be a child, anyone who's there, asks his 4 questions. Now the question stage has been accomplished. We go into the answer stage, and all this, we'll discuss what these specific pages are. But after there's we talk about the 4 sons and all this. Try to talk about that in a little bit. But after that, the whole thing is answer. It's the answer. We start talking about our shame and going to our glory, and we go details and more, talking about our shame and glory, and details and details and details and details. All this are just details about the Exodus. Dayenu is kind of getting the praise. Look at all the things you did for us to take us out, and more details and details about the Exodus. Then Pesach, matzah, and mar is kind of like it's towards the end of Magid already. It's kind of like getting to the brass tacks. This is the bottom line, things that need to be known coming out. The bottom line, that the things that need to have been said from this Pesach, matzah, and mar, and what they're about, and more details and details, until we get back to elevating that cup of wine. And we now are going back to finishing the second of the 4 cups of wine, which is right over here. So again, all these pages, once I've hit Magid means to tell over. Haggadah is from the word Magid. It's the same word with different conjugation of the same word. It's the telling over of the story. This is the nucleus of the Seder. It's accomplished in those three formats of having it through question answer, starting from the shame and disgrace of the Jewish people, that we started as idol worshipers, our father's father, Avram's father, set up as an idol worshiper, and going through the ultimate deliverance and all the details that Chazal want us to say about the Seder. Now here, I'm going to make a parenthetical note. Here is where your principal conversation about the Exodus should be. People, it's a very strange, it's an oddity that people like to, people obviously like to ask questions at the Seder, and that's not an oddity, that's great. People like to focus on parts of the Seder that are on the periphery. What about this son? Why is this son different than that son? Why, what makes them different? And just, why were these different sages sitting in Bnei Brak, and where was this Bnei Brak? Was it the same Bnei Brak? And why didn't they know that it was day? And all those are actually the pages over here. Stick with me. These are the pages over here, which come in between, kind of smack in between the question answer, and then these pages that come in between, which are a little bit mysterious. We'll try to get back to them, but they're not this. You're not telling over anything about the Exodus by saying, "Hey, these four people, these five Talmidei Chachamim were sitting in Bnei Brak." You're not telling over the story of the Exodus by telling over what the wise son is like and what the simple son is like. That's not really the place. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's learning Torah, but it's not. If you want to focus your energies on questions and understanding and really connecting, it's in the story of the Exodus itself. What was the bondage? What were we subjected to? Not in just a physical way, but in an emotional and metaphysical way. What were we kept away from? Both with Yaakov and Lavan, and all the way through, the Jews of Mitzrayim. And what were we brought to? And how did that happen? Well, for example, a question: why did it have to happen in such a miraculous way, as opposed to in the Megillah, where it happened in a very natural way? Just as a feeder, but that is the place to really focus your energy on questions, because that's what the night is about. It's the night of our deliverance and our freedom of Geula. So, but again, here is where we've done that mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, telling over the Exodus, and we have our second cup over here. Now there's an oddity over here, which is Hallel, which usually we're familiar with. Most people, who come to synagogue are familiar with it in synagogue. For some reason, Hallel breaks up in the Seder into the beginning of Hallel, which is before the meal, and then probably the first third of Hallel, I should say. It's even less than the first third, but first fourth of Hallel, and then the other 3/4 of Hallel after the meal. It is broken up a little bit here. It does have a strange aspect, but we go. The point is, because even though Hallel should be after the meal, that's really where we do our full. Once we've eaten and we have the full ability to praise Hashem, but still there was a part of it that they wanted to come straight from telling over the story. We go immediately into praise. So Hallel is broken up, but and at that point we have finished relating the story of the Exodus. So we have relating the story of the Exodus. We'll take over Urchatz, Karpas, and Magid. Urchatz and Karpas are initiating questions. Magid is the actual telling it over, where we talk about from being in a state of shame to deliverance and glory, and where we tell over a tremendous amount of details. And now we've accomplished the first of the biblical mitzvahs relating the story of the Exodus, and we've already done 2 of the cups of wine and kiddish, and that's where we're holding in our scorecard of mitzvahs. Next, we move on after Magid is over, and again, feel free to jump in at any point. After Magid is over, we're going to go into the next biblical mitzvah, which is eating matzah. Now, over here, in order to understand all the different customs and different twists and turns of eating matzah, we need to understand the different aspects that Chazal bring down about matzah that they wanted us to accomplish. There's a biblical mitzvah to eat matzah. That you have to eat a kazayas of matzah, whatever a kazayas is, the size of an olive, which somehow translates into 37 pieces of matzah within 36 seconds. But either way, that's the size of an olive. They had giant olives back then. You wouldn't believe it, man. So you have to eat. You have to fulfill the biblical mitzvah of eating matzah. Now, the Gemara, which actually, again, I think was in Daf Yomi today, I don't know, 2 days ago. The Gemara says that there was the opinion of Hillel. Actually, I believe it's Hillel the Amora, not the Tana, for all those who are more advanced in the Talmudic studies. But either way, Hillel ate. No, it's Hillel the Tana. Hillel ate matzah and maror together, even without the Pesach offering. He ate them together. So the Gemara says, we want to try to fulfill Hillel's opinion too. So we're going to eat matzah by itself, but we're going to eat it again with the maror after we've eaten the maror. So there's twice we take care of that mitzvah. Now, there are 2 matzahs there that are matzahs that have to just be there for the Yom Tov meal, because every meal of Yom Tov and Shabbos, we have 2 challahs. Here we have 2 matzahs. So we need to have 2 matzahs present. We need to have the matzahs there for the Yom Tov meal. And then the afikomen, which takes place after, right at the very end of the meal, we eat the afikomen. Whatever. So at the very end of the meal, we eat the afikomen. So there is it's a piece of matzah there that's so to speak a placeholder that at the times of the temple we would be eating over there the Pesach offering. God willing, it should be this year. We would be eating the Pesach offering. So there we eat a piece of matzah in its place instead, and that's a tough one. So we have therefore matzah is going to be accomplished. It's going to be accomplished during 4 stages. We have eating. We have the mitzvah of eating matzah here by motzi matzah, where we make a bracha on eating matzah. We have matzah again by korech, where we do the hill sandwich, which a maror comes in between. But we have matzah again by korech. Then we have to have the meal. So we have our matzah. We have to now make, we have to break 2 matzahs. Have 2 matzahs that were used for the meal. So we have a shulchan aruch, we have matzah. And then we have matzah again at Tafon, which is the placeholder for the afikomen. That all these 3, number 1, number 2, and number 4 on this, motzi matzah, korech, and tzafon are all part of we looked at as part of the mitzvah of eating matzah. The Yom Tov meal, even though tzafon is really again a placeholder for the Paschal lamb, but it's a little bit more complicated than we need for now. But these 3, 1, 2, and 4 are all the mitzvahs eating matzah. And then 3, we have matzah also again for the, we have matzahs that we're breaking for Shulchan Aruch for a regular Yom Tov meal. So that leaves us with an understanding of the various aspects of matzah. So now, let me just see for a second. There's one point that let's make mention about. Yachatz. Yachatz is hold on a second. Let me just see something over here. Just want to make sure this right. Yeah. So Yachatz is breaking the middle matzah. I didn't put aside. I think I actually took it out. That was confusing. But Yachatz is where we break the middle matzah. So after kaddish, after we make kiddush and orchatz, and we wash our hands without a bracha and karpas, and we dip the vegetable and eat the vegetable. These 2, kaddish again, where we accomplish kiddush and do the first cup, orchatz and karpas to initiate questioning. Yachatz, we break the middle matzah. The reason we break the middle matzah is interesting. The Gemara says that. It's called lechem oni. The matzah we use is called lechem oni. It's bread of poverty, whatever that means. Actually, it was the topic of yesterday's class. Anybody was there for on the Maral, that was what we were discussing. And it's the bread of poverty, and therefore we have the same way a person who is impoverished would probably only have a piece of bread, would not have a whole matzah. So we break the middle matzah. So half of that matzah is going to be used for the afikomen, and the other half had motzi matzah. So there is our middle matzah broken. We leave that matzah uncovered because Chazal also say, the sages also say, that the matzah, that's where we find the cover. You'll see in the Haggadah, cover the matzahs, uncover the matzahs, cover the matzahs. That the Haggadah, when we talk about, you see it's Mitzrayim, it says matzah. Why is it called lechem oni? It's from the word oneh, which means to answer. It's all the answers should be said in front of the matzah. Whatever the depth Chazal are trying to tell you with that. Therefore, the word oni, which means both impoverished and also means answer, it has the same root, so to speak. So we use the matzah for both. We have it present when we answer, and we have it broken. That's why you have a broken piece. You have 3 matzahs, and one of them is broken. 2 of them are, the 2 are there for the Yom Tov meal, and the broken one is there for your afikomen, for your motzi matzah, and we have it there present in order to accomplish what Chazal wanted us to accomplish with a broken pizza matzah. I want to go back to some other pieces of the Haggadah for a second. So we have all those middle pages of the Haggadah, which I showed you. After the question and answer format, we have all the sons and all this, we'll show it to you in one second. Really, what's accomplished over there is don't get too lost in the amount of details over there. It's really giving you the criteria, the who, what, when, where, and how of how the Seder is supposed to be performed. That's really what those pages are, as opposed to the actual meat and potatoes of talking about the exodus itself. So you have right away, the second cup is poured in Magid, and again, there's a lot of other little paragraphs in there that, if you want to ask me about, you can, at the very end, feel free to ask any questions about the other paragraphs. But we have like halach ma'anya. But again, the manishtanas is started. The questions are initiated. The answer begins avadim ayinu. But then we stop and say, who are the people that have to answer, that have to tell over this, and who are the ones that they have to tell it to? Right? Who is it? Who are the people that have to? And the Haggadah says you should know. Everybody does. Everybody has to say it over. Even if you're the smartest person, even if you're a tremendous scholar, even if you spend your entire day meditating for 23 hours a day about the Exodus because you have nothing else to accomplish during the day, so you decide to meditate about the Exodus 23 hours a day. So even if you did that, you still would need to tonight tell over with your mouth, not verbally, tell over the story of the Exodus. And that's why it brings these list of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, and Bnei Brak, and these are the biggest sages of the time. As a matter of fact, for those that know, and again, our topic is not to say a little bit of little verse, little pieces of Torah on the Seder, but for those that know and have heard, all five of these individuals are people who are from ancestors that were their ancestors were not actually subjugated in Mitzrayim. Rabbi Akiva comes from he comes from a convert. His father was a convert, and the other ones are either of Kohanim or Levium. Neither the Kohanim or the Levium. Oh, there were no Kohanim, but Levium were subjected, were enslaved in Mitzrayim. They were spared. So the Gemara, but the Haggadah itself is bringing these five people that are actually, it doesn't have to do with their direct ancestry. Still, they have to do it. And even though the Talmidei Chachamim, and it says, how do you have to do it? You have to say it over to your children. Which children? Any child. You have to figure out which child to how to interact with each specific child in a way that they're going to understand and be able to take something home from the Seder. And when do you have to do it? Oh, I would think you'd have to do it from Rosh Chodesh. You should know, but you know what? It's not true, and it tells you exactly why it has to be tonight. And what do you need to say? And that's kind of the rest. You need to talk about this, and then the rest of it is the details. We need to talk about how Hashem saved us, and here are the details. From shame to glory. Details and details, shame to glory. Details, 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 and details. And that would explain the format, again, of Magid, which takes us back to our five mitzvahs. Relating the story of the Exodus of Egypt, eating matzah, drinking the 4 cups of wine, eating maror, and reciting Hallel. We didn't speak about eating maror, which is pretty intuitive. At the point after I've eaten matzah, before I eat the little sandwich, I make a bracha on the maror, and then I take the matzah and the maror and I put it together. So maror gets its own place, and then it gets connected with the matzah. And Hallel is its own mitzvah relating Hallel. And as we mentioned at the beginning, nirtzah is a newer custom. So let's zoom all the way back and just take a look at our format. Once again, 4 cups of wine are going to be spread into kaddish, cup number 1. Orachatz and karpas, initiating questions with the child. That's what they're there for. Yachatz, breaking the middle matzah, is preparing the matzah to be able to say, it's preparing the matzah for both to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah and to be able to say the Haggadah on with that matzah broken in front of you. Magid is we're going to start saying over all the details. This is, again, should take up 50% of your evening, should be on Magid. 40% should be on Magid. Okay, tailing over all the details of the Exodus. Rachza, washing your hands. That's a regular mitzvah. That's our run-of-the-mill mitzvah here of washing hands from a meal. That we know. Motzi matzah, eating the yontif meal. That's standard. Maror, its own mitzvah, rabbinic mitzvah of the day. Korech, mixing the matzah and the maror together to fulfill Hillel's opinion. Shulchan Aruch, the meal of Yom Tov. Tzafon is the afikomen, which is a kind of piece of matzah, but it's a placeholder for the Paschal offering. Barich is Birkat Hamazon, and Hallel is the last of our 5 mitzvahs, the third mitzvah, rabbinic mitzvah, to recite praise to Hashem, and then nirtzah is a custom, and that, my friends, is the format, the structure, and the the mosaic of all the various mitzvahs and how they weave through the Seder. And with that, I will take any questions about this topic or about any topic, and whether I know the answer or not, I will try my best to make something up and make myself look good. And now I will wait awkwardly for a few seconds. And with that, I guess.
I have a question. Rabbi.
Oh, no, someone actually has a question. Sorry. Go on.
Are you sure?
Yeah, sure, I'm kidding. Go on.
Two related questions. You're talking about the 3 broken matzahs. Should those be in addition to the 2 matzahs that are set aside in place of halot? Because it is no longer Shabbos. So I was a little.
Wait, say that. I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
You have with the afikomen, you have the 3 broken matzahs, right? Are those intended to be in addition to the 2 matzahs that represent the halot?
No, there's not 3. So there are not. There is a total of 3 matzahs. There's a lot of Torah that people like to say, and there's truth to all of them. I'm not belittling them at all. There's truth to all of them about why there are 3 matzahs at the meal. But ultimately, some say it's for Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, or for Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And the fact of the matter is, you should know, for anybody who likes to have any depth in Torah, and I know I'm on a little bit of a tangent from your answer, but those are the same answer, really. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. When you want to pick up that 3 pattern, you're going to be in the same answer. In the same, playing in the same league for sure. But there are 3 matzahs that are there during the meal. From a halachic standpoint, that's total, 3 total. That from a halachic standpoint, though, the matzahs, there are 3 because you're going to need 2 for your meal, and you're going to need a partial matzah to use as the afikomen and for your to eat as your mitzvah of motzi matzah, of doing the matzah. So there's not 3 pieces at the afikomen. There is half for the afikomen. There's half of. So let's go through this process. What the process of making hamotzi. Let me see if I have something over here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to use a visual aid. Oh yeah.
How about Legos?
Huh? Yeah, Legos. If it was Erevin, I can use Legos. So I don't know why these are here. Somebody had some sort of kaddish by the kollel, and we have all these cakes. Okay, I do not eat any of these cakes. I know chametz. Do not eat these on Pesach. That would be a terrible, terrible mistake, and it's the wrong lesson to get out of. Don't eat these ever, as a matter of fact. But don't eat them on Pesach. So no, they're probably very good. I just they're not called this, so I can't eat them. But I probably would be working them down myself. So let's imagine that the middle here is the broken matzah. So what you're going to want to do here when you get to the meal, which is at the time the matzahs start off again. The matzahs will start off as 3 whole matzahs. You have 3 whole matzahs, but at the very beginning of the Seder at Yachat, we break that middle matzah, and now we have 2 halves. One of them is put away for the afikomen, and the other one is just exposed. So we have 3 total matzahs, but it's the middle one is in 2 halves. So we have those 3 together. When it comes to time for eating the matzahs, when it comes to time to making the bracha, so now we're left with 2 jobs that need to be accomplished at once. One of them is making a bracha. One of them is making a bracha on the mitzvah of eating matzah, which the middle matzah is used for, and one of them is your 2 matzahs for the meal. It winds up going like this: we pick up the matzahs, we make the bracha, after we wash hands. We're now talking about in motzi matzah, right? Which is really where we're launching into both the mitzvah of matzah and the meal. We pick them up. So here what we have, if you notice what we have our mitzvah, what we're going to accomplish the mitzvah of matzah on, but we also have 2 whole matzahs. We need 2 whole matzahs because we have a meal. So we pick all 3 up. We say, hamoti lechem min haaretz, and now we drop the bottom one. We actually don't have to drop it, but we put down the bottom one. The bottom one is actually is going to be left over for the meal right now. We don't need that right now. Now we say on the mitzvah of matzah itself, we're only using that hole in this piece to do the mitzvah, and this one will be saved for the meal, and the other half the kids apparently have for the afikomen. So you're left with 3 matzahs. You need 2 whole in order to have the 2 for the meal. and you want one of them broken into two to be split to use half for motzi matzah and half for the afikomen. I hope that answers your question.
I think so. It's a good start. The other related question I had was, could you discuss the purpose of using shmura matzah for?
Yeah, sure.
For just the Seder, or does it have to be for the first 2 days?
So this is there are some different customs over here. It's a very nice. The Torah says like this. The Torah says shmartim es ha mitzvos. We say shmartim es ha matzahs. That the matzah has to be a shmura matzah. Shmura means that the matzah is watched to make sure that it does not become chametz. Now every matzah has to be watched to make sure that it doesn't become chametz. So we learn out specifically. Well, let me take one more step. There's a debate about where the watching stage begins. Where does the guarding of the matzah, of the wheat rather, begin to make sure that it doesn't become chametz? There are some people that are extremely strict. That while it is a lot of the matzahs are they make sure that from the time, literally from the time it buds out, like nothing ever should no liquid should get there. Actually, as a matter of fact, if there's been a bunch of people from here that have done kashrut jobs watching wheat, I believe there was one in Oregon at one point, but I think they're usually in Arizona somewhere.
David was doing it.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Right. So there, and other matzahs, which are not officially called shmura matzah, other matzahs are just at a later process. From the time that they're made into flour, they're made sure, they keep them in a place that's completely dry, free of moisture, that we know that there's no chametz that could take place. So what we do is, now really there's a debate. According to some opinions, once it's flour, that's where shmura becomes applicable at the flour stage. Other opinions hold it's applicable earlier at the wheat stage. So what we do is we keep the wheat stage we keep the wheat stage. 1 second. Well, it might be from the water and the I believe so. I believe I got that right. So we keep the wheat stage for the Seder night. That's shmura matzah. And there are those that want to keep it because of a potential of, let me explain just 1 second, why are we keeping the wheat stage for the Seder night? Because we want to make sure that if that is the opinion that's right, that it has to be from the stage while it's still stalks of wheat, that it has to be made sure that it doesn't get any moisture on it in order to become chametz. They're still in kernels. If that's the opinion, and we made a mistake and they were wet, then on the Seder night, we haven't fulfilled our mitzvah of matzah. We didn't have what the Torah says shmura matzah. So there are people for the Seder night. We hold for the Seder night. We are strict to make sure that the matzah that we get is shmura matzah in order to make sure we fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah at the Seder. Now, that being the case, there's another problem. I don't know how technical we want to get if people are following, but according to the opinion that no moisture can get on it from that point, if moisture does get on it from that point, then it's potentially chametz. So that opinion actually holds that the other opinion, that only watching it from the flour stage, that's a real problem. He actually holds that that's a real problem, that you're potentially eating chametz on Pesach. And maybe I've got a little bit overcomplicated, but what people that do it all year about the the whole Pesach about the shmura matzah, it's a very nice stringency. It's a very expensive stringency. So you have to weigh your your options and your finances and how that's going to play itself out. You're keeping a stringency to make sure that you're eating matzah that fulfills the halachic obligations of shmura matzah, and B, that there's a further distance between the possibility that it became a chametz than what we call standard matzahs pshutas. So it's a nice stringency. However, I would say that it's catching on a little bit more in modern times, but it's certainly not. When I was young, I never saw anybody do that. So I grew up in with my own my own, obviously, community, but I'm sure there were communities that did, but it's a stringency. So I would tell you for the Seder, you eat shmur matzah. By the way, shmur matzah does not mean handmade. A lot of people eat machine shmur matzah. It's still the same. Shmur is just the time where we start guarding the matzah. You do not have to eat it the whole Seder if it's going to be, taxing on your family or expensive or, so that's not, I wouldn't say that that's the first stringency you need to keep. It's interesting because the opinion that holds that you only need to watch it from the time of flour actually holds that their matzah is shmura matzah. Technically speaking, if you had no shmura matzah, you had no matzah that said it was shmura, if you ate what we'd call a standard matzah, that opinion holds that that's shmura matzah. So it's just an interesting thing. But either way, yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right. So if that is the case, then I wish you all a fantastic evening, and everyone should have a great Yom Tov. If you would like, if it would help anybody, I would be very, very happy to email you the slides or this PDF or whatever it is, if it'll help you remind you of how this goes about. If you want to have it at your Seder or the video, I think the video of this will be available as well. And you can for sure email me, text me, or WhatsApp me with any questions. And with that, I am going to mic drop. Have a